I did put little cards with prices on these paintings, not because I thought you were going to buy them,
Right.
but I wanted to speak about that just very briefly because I just took a workshop with the Visionary Art Collective, Victoria Fry, and she did a Zoom about, and one of the things that she talked about was how to price your work. And I decided I was pricing my work too high. And she, because she talked about measuring the square inches in your work and deciding anywhere from $1.25 to $3.
Oh, a square foot.
Yeah, a square inch, a
Oh.
square inch. And when I measured, I didn't measure all of them, but when I measured a couple, I thought, oh, well, because I'm pricing them too high, because she said that you can't count on the time. And I was always counting the time.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I thought that was interesting because she's in New York and she has a magazine and she's pretty much an expert. She's an artist, but she is an expert on selling artwork, and she will tutor you. And so I thought that was just an interesting piece of information to pass on to you. I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I was an English major in college. I went to College of DuPage for 3 years instead of 2. I was done after 2, but I didn't want to go to the big university. So I lived with my parents until then, and they were like, you know, go. And finally, I went to Northern as an English major 1 semester, and I said, no, this is not for me. So I started taking art classes because I always have been a maker since the time I was a little kid, and kind of a perfectionist, because when I did my math homework, I used to do it and then I copy it over so it would be perfect. I know, it's crazy. Yeah, but I wanted, and of course, all the answers were wrong because I wasn't really good, but it looks really good. That's right. So when I went to Northern, I met Wynne Jones. And I don't know if you're familiar with Wynne Jones' work. Well, he was just an amazing painter. And I saw his work in professor art show at the end of the year, and I was just captivated. So I took him for watercolor. Well, I didn't know that he was just the hardest teacher to get a good grade in. And I had a scholarship, so I had to get all A's and a B to keep the college. It was a university scholarship. And so everyone said, Wynne will not, you don't get A's in Wynne's class, and he's the landscape painter. So I painted landscapes, and they were really bad. I had no idea. I mean, and this is what he used to do. He used to walk around and kind of hover over you, and he'd go. Like lurch from the edge. Right. That's exactly what, and he just go, walk away. And I mean, that was very disheartening. So I was taking figure drawing, and you know, he talked about when you do watercolor, you make colors that make other colors. So I did some figurative things from my figurative drawing class and used 2 colors, alizarin crimson and Prussian blue. And when they combine, what do they make? Purple. So I got an A on my first painting because he didn't, or maybe an A-. He didn't let you, you know, you had to paint 3 weeks. So that was really encouraging. And so I started painting watercolor, and that's how I got into this. And I've been painting watercolor since 1971, and a long time. And I got an MA in watercolor painting and an MFA in watercolor painting. And the paintings were quite a bit different. And that's what I want to show you now, how they progressed. And so that's when I'm going to use the machine here. And and any questions at any time, just feel free to just raise your hand. I'm very easygoing. I taught for watercolor and design I taught 3 years at Northern, but I couldn't get that 10-year job because I was a graduate of the department and they just weren't hiring us. And then Rockford College for 8 years, and I taught design and drawing, and my heart was in watercolor painting, to do that, and I did get to do that. So
Okay, we're just
now where do I go here?
So you have to decide,
Okay,
and then when you're doing your demonstration, the camera's straight down on you, and I'm just about to switch the camera and see if that will work. So bear with me.
that's okay. You bear with me too.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So this was one of the first watercolors I ever did. And you can see the blue and alizarin crimson palette. That was pretty smart because I painted those colors for at least a year to get through the class with him and not have him make that sound that he would make. And it wasn't only to me. He would go around and do that to everything. Oh, another thing about Wynn is I later started to do workshops, and he had a lot of material and a lot of jokes, and I'd heard them all. So when I went to the workshop, I used all his material. And then he went to the workshop after me, and the students said, "Oh, Joan told us that." Just phrases like, well, if you make this mistake, you're done early, and Frisket is only as good as you can paint it, as well as you can paint it. That's what it's going to look like when you peel it off. And happy accidents, and he had some stories which I can't recall now that he would tell, and I tell them all. And then when I saw him, he says, "All right, I heard you used all my material," because they were saying, "Oh, Joan told us that." So it was pretty funny. So as the paintings evolved, because I took figurative art and I was really interested in relationships between women in school, because when you have your roommates, you tell your roommates everything. They know more than your mom, they know everything. And so I started, this was actually a commission for my hairdresser, and started to work with those two figures. And I thought it was really funny because honestly, I didn't know that much. And they would say things like, "Well, you push the paintings right up to the front of the picture plane and it gives it a sense of immediacy." And I was just like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I had no idea what they were talking about. Oh my gosh. And one time in an interview for a teaching assistant job, drawing and painting, because I had a pretty high ranking, and they ranked us in the department. And I was having the interview, and the professor said, "Well, what can you tell us about your process of making art?" And I just looked at him, and the clock went tick, tick. I had no idea what he was talking about. And I'm going to talk about that today to you, because I think it's very important that you have a process and that you can talk about your process. I think that is part of the essential thing that make us an artist. And then I went through a period where I I hid the figure. I started hiding the figure. This was a green snail period. I'd gone to Florida and I got this really cool green snail. And at this point, I started using stencils for the bodies because I wasn't real interested in making them real realistic. I was going more for expressionistic feeling. And so she's curled up like almost like a snail inside this green snail shell. And then that's when I started using the backgrounds and the water, and then I would wrap her up. Because I didn't necessarily want a lot of skin showing. I just wanted to wrap the paintings up and for expression, just to do something different. So I started stuffing the figures in shells, and then I started stuffing them in bags. So that's pretty abstract to see that it is a bag around her. And actually she has her lips on her hands, which you know how when you put on makeup, you go like that, or like that to get the lipstick.
They may not have it down.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of times you put on a red lipstick and you don't want to get on your teeth and be walking around with lipstick all over your teeth. A really good friend will tell you, Joan, you've got lipstick on your teeth. My husband will do that. So I just put her lips on the hand, and she actually won I think second place or third place down at the Springfield professional show at the state fair many years ago. And I was poor and I couldn't go, and then I've had a lot of luck at the Springfield fair, the professional art show. Did you know that they canceled the professional show at the state fair? Because, yeah, I know there was a big to do, and the winemakers wanted the building because it was air conditioned, and I guess a few years ago they didn't want it. So some lady, I'm not going to talk mean about her, she decided that we just get rid of the professional show and just have the amateur show. And that show was stunning. I'm not kidding you, because we had people coming from Chicago. It was a very sophisticated, wonderful show. And they used to have like an opening with wine and champagne. The governor would be there and all that. And of course, that fell away as years went by because we're artists and we kind of get shoveled sometimes to the wayside. Yeah, and it was the amateur. So what the Springfield Art Association did, this was so cool. Everyone was so mad of no place to show. And it was, I saw the show and it was beautiful. And they had it the week before or 2 weeks before because of their schedule, and then now they're going to try to bring it back because the artists were just really mad, and it was a really high quality show. So anyway, so I got to be in that show. Actually, that little koi colored pencil drawing was in it. My husband's a painter too, and he got a piece in it too. And then after we drove to Springfield, 6.5 hours in the car, Gary and I said, well, we should have shipped them. Because his wasn't that big either, but you know, live and learn. You know, I was just used to going down to the Springfield. Well, then I had some big life changes, and I don't know about you, but I think your art reflects what you're going through in your life. You know, you're happy or you're sad, you have grandchildren, maybe, you know, some charming things occur. Well, this was a period of a lot of pain and suffering in my life, and I call them the pain and suffering paintings, and I can't believe people bought them. But I still have this one. It's kind of yellow in this picture. It's not really that yellow, but I used to use caribou antlers to kind of put people in chairs and enclose them in that space, just to show that constriction and that she could get up out of the chair and walk away, but she never does because she's caught, she's captured, she's stuck. And so those are the paintings that I did during that period. There was a whole series of those because all these represent a series of work, maybe 8 to 10 paintings. Well, then I didn't paint for a while, and I got a lot happier, not because I wasn't painting, but in my life. And I couldn't paint for a while, so I became a knitter.
Oh.
And does anyone knit here?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you know how it is. Oh my, knit. My son actually went to college, and I had to have something to do. And so I started, the painting started to change and lighten up. And I started to do a series of lamb paintings. And this was one of them and she's actually knitting off a lamb, because the fantasy was, wouldn't that be cool if you had this really pretty blue lamb, and you're just sitting there. Of course, he's all carded, and the wool's all carded and spun, and it just would spin magically as it came off the lamb, and the lamb would be there, and that was the idea. And so I did a series of lamb paintings, and this is actually the first one I did. Of that lamb painting. Yeah, and one of my knitter friends, she just bought that instantly when she saw it, and that actually got first place at the Norris, and that was the first painting I showed coming out of the gate when I started painting again, and I was just thrilled out of my mind. It's painting, you paint in isolation. Sometimes you do a workshop, but you're in your studio by yourself, listening to music, podcasts, whatever, or silence, and you're by yourself. And so it's a wonderful thing to be able to bring this work of art and show people. It's great when you sell it, of course. But that's not what you can count on. You only can count on is how you feel when you paint. That's all you can count on, because someone might like it or not like it. Well, at least they have a reaction, and you might make some money from it. You might get in a show, but all you can count on at the end of the day is how you feel when you're making your art. Yeah, because you can't live for all the possibilities of things that might happen. And then I have to show you this, because I did go through a period where we went to the Walker Museum up in Minnesota, in, come on, tell me the town. I can't remember. And not to, oh my God, Minneapolis. My son went to school up there, and we were walking through that museum, and I saw a picnic basket, and it had inlaid, it was wood, and inlaid like mahogany rabbits in there. But this rabbit had these really long teeth, and there is such a breed that they grow really long, and they have to eat like rodents to shorten them. So I kind of like that horrific element, because a lot of times I do put something a little creepy in my paintings. And so I did a series of long-toothed rabbits, and actually those sold, and I'm not exactly sure why, but this was a 40 by 60 inch painting. And she's got, her look on her face is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have these rabbits with teeth crawling all over me. But that was one of my favorite paintings, and I'll show you the sketch I did for that when I talk about my sketchbook. And then I started painting fish. And I'm not going to show you that one.
Can you center it?
Sure.
Just a little bit over towards the middle. Yeah.
Oh, this way. This way and up. Yeah. And this is a super long, it's, oh gosh, it's like 54 by 60-inch koi painting, because I like to paint large. Because it's watercolor, it has more impact, because watercolor can be small and we can be ignored, you know, as watercolors. And traditionally, going back to the English watercolor school, watercolors were not even given any credibility. You know, John Constable, he would take a watercolor if you invited him to lunch or dinner, and he'd take you a watercolor, just like, oh, here, you know, the host, a hostess gift, a hostess gift. So traditionally, you know, you're fighting things. I can get in shows, but I never win like best of show or anything, because it's watercolor, you know, and they just have to do oil or acrylic, or, you know, and I'm sure excellent, and I know excellent paintings. But, you know, in the art building at Northern, we had ceramics and sculpture in the basement, and then there was art history on the second floor, and then there was design and wood crafts on the third floor, and then on the top floor it was painting. Acrylic and oil and watercolor was up there because it was closest to God. So it's true. So that was the experience, you know, going through school. Now, I do heartily believe in using a sketchbook. I don't know how many, let's see, Artbeat. Are you familiar with Artbeat? It's an online magazine. And let's see, Lynn Kornecki, she does it, and that's over in the St. Charles area. Just type in Artbeat and you'll look, and it's a informational guide for new artists. She features artists. I was lucky enough to have her feature my work, and again, the Norris. She saw the work at the Norris, and so that was really nice. And you know, called me up, and I was like a nervous wreck. I was a blotch from here to here, and on the phone interview, and she was the most lovely human being to talk to. By the end of the conversation, I wanted to go to lunch with her, you know, because she just put me at ease. And so Fox Valley Artbeat is a really good resource, and it will tell you where shows are, and it features all kinds of artists and what people are doing. So I did an article with her, a second article on sketchbooks, because I know a lot of artists don't use sketchbooks, and I think they are crucial. And maybe that's my, you know, learning from school. I don't know, but they encourage us to use sketchbooks. So sketchbooks can involve copying. This is a Pantarmo study of a young girl, and I just copied it. The style was mannerism. And this is a Picasso, and it was really interesting because I was not a big fan, but after I drew this, and I drew it 3 times, I became a fan because I understood what he did and the brilliance of what he did to make that piece. Another thing that I do is just sketch out little ideas. And this piece over here, I brought a couple of colored pencil pieces, so you can see the other thing that I just started.
We can't capture, we can't, yeah, you can bring it over, yeah.
Bring it over.
We need a cameraman next time.
Sure. Sure, let's see.
Thank you, that's great, yeah.
Get her
Yeah,
straight.
lovely.
Yeah. So the idea was, I love cats, which you can see.
Really?
Some of them. You didn't know that. Yeah. I'm out of the cat business though, because I lose them too soon and I don't understand. But anyway, so I paint a lot of cats. And I thought, what if at night a whole bunch of cats got in the museum? What, can you imagine the chaos of them going nuts in a museum? So this one's climbing on top of Marilyn, and this is that's Andy Warhol's Marilyn. This is Franz Mark's Blue Horses, which I just admire. And this is Gustav Klimt's The Kiss. And then I thought, what if the fabric would roll out, you know, of the painting, because it's a fantasy work of art. Color pencil is a whole other thing. You think watercolor can take a long time? Oh my gosh. So, but I was really lucky this year. I got a piece in the colored pencil of Society of America show. And so I was just thrilled out of my gourd. But again, I can afford to go because they have a big convention and you know, yeah, so I was just really excited. So those are that's the way my mind works.
What size is the original of that, Joan?
This is the original.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is?
It's I haven't done any prints of anything ever in my life.
It's so shiny.
Well, that's the watercolor, and what you do is as you put the layers on, you rub it with like Kleenex or something, and then it's just like watercolor. You can't just put a layer of pink on. You have to put a real pale layer on, and then another, to bring it out. So, and I wanted to just do the cats in silhouette just to represent them. But again, doing these, copying these, gave me some idea into what the artist did. And then I was going to enter this in the Colored Pencil Society show, but there's a thing, I can't remember what it's called, but these are out of copyright, but Andy Warhol is not. It's got to be 70 years or something. So that couldn't be entered. It's a certain word that they call that. So yeah, I thought, what a great idea. And then I spent all that time and then I couldn't enter it. So that's okay. Okay, so just to talk about the sketchbooks. Sure.
Isn't it okay, even if it's copyrighted, if you get permission and if you tell who it is? You know, like, in other words, in your title, if you say cats looking at dot, dot, dot.
Yeah. No, not for them. They're
What was the show?
For the colored pencils. You can do it, yeah. And you know, galleries probably won't mind, but Colored Pencil Society of America is a big deal. I was running around the house saying really bad words, and so I won't tell you the word, but you'll get the idea. I was like, I got in the flipping Colored Pencil Society of America. So I was just so excited. Idea, you know, of the little cats in front of the pictures. And then I had another one that I did, it was small, and there's cats climbing on Picasso there. And then, you know, a place to have a really good show, but you have to wait 3 years, is the University of Wisconsin at Madison in their hospital. Yeah, you could have a group show there. But you have to apply now, and it takes 3 years, and it has to be positive. It can't be anything upsetting. And when my husband was up there having surgery, they have 8 galleries. And so it's something you might want to do as a guild, because that's what they do. And you have this, you know, they put you in 8 galleries, and you'd all be in one gallery, of course, and just a beautiful place to show. So this is my the new sketchbook. So let me show you the old sketchbook. So I take all kinds of ideas, because this is super, super important to me to just sketch. And you can see I'm a very sloppy sketcher. I don't spend a lot of time, but it gets the idea down. So this was the original woman knitting off a lamb. Those are lambs. Do little sketches of lambs in there. And then hands for knitting. This was a commission. I went down to this lady, we went down to the aquarium, and oh my gosh, she she had all these ideas, which, you know, is pretty overwhelming. And I had a list of what she wanted and didn't want. And finally, we came to a decision. I don't really like working in commissions because sometimes it's impossible to make someone happy. You know, so I do full-size drawings in there. That's the way I started out doing colored pencil, and I practiced a lot. And so you see, you know, how they changed. Come that way. Yeah, and just a little sketch of one of the lambs that I did. This cat, I don't know where I got him from, but when I do him in a painting, he's so different. But years and years ago, I got that cat, and so I just love him. He's just such a sophisticated creature. And then that was a Friskies ad just for the silhouette, and just all kinds of little ideas in here, and I use it all the time. It's really important to me. And I also, you'll see when you look through this, like I was watching Hamlet one time. Oh, and I wrote down all the things that we say in contemporary society. That Hamlet, we came from, like, you know, woman, thy name is vanity, and they're in here someplace. Oh, neither a borrower nor a lender be. All those things came from Hamlet. I was just shocked. And there's a greyhound with a puppy bow. Greyhound, I did a big painting. They got an honorable mention up in Beloit, which I was thrilled about, with a greyhound, and that was a 40 by 60 inch paint. And here's my notes of all the things I'm going to say today. So let me read them to you. So I'm going to put these over here. When I do the sketches and I decide, you know, I'm going to paint. And the paintings, I don't time them anymore because it's too depressing. I don't want to know how long they take. It's just, you know, and you know how that goes. So what I do is, the first thing I do is I put the painting on the board. I use 140-pound Arches cold press paper. I buy it in a roll, and I stretch all my paper because I get these soaking wet. And I used to paint on 300-pound paper, but really they're better on 140-pound cold press paper. And Wynne Jones used to say that I burn the paint into the painting because I do so many layers. So like I'll do a stencil of a cat or a picture, and then I graphite the back and then draw it onto the board, because you want your paper to be as white and pristine as possible, because that's how, in my case, you get the glow. But like Ken Call, when you look at his stuff, he's going to have that real light coming through. And because he doesn't paint those areas. So you know, my stuff is a little different. So this is actually the one I'm going to demonstrate. So I do the whole drawing. I tape this down to my board on top of my paper, and then I can erase on this and correct anything possible. And then I do the old-fashioned way of just using graphite and then transfer it. And then I use a kneaded eraser, not a kneaded eraser, Mars Statler eraser, and just erase the whole thing and then go back and draw. You know, I have a lot of patience, and I spend a lot of time. And you know, sometimes I've had trouble getting in watercolor shows because they're not the traditional way. But when I was in school, my teacher said, paint is paint. And it doesn't have to look like a watercolor, like what you think a watercolor should be. If I were John Sargent, and if you've ever seen his watercolors, the brilliance, or like Ken, the brilliance that it takes to just draw lightly and put that down immediately. I respect it so much, but because of my uptight personality, I just can't seem to do that. So you can look through this as well.
Is that thin paper vellum?
And it's
Yeah.
it's under the, it's tracing paper. I buy it from Dick Flick in big rolls. And then I just cut it to size. And then I put it over. So that's what I brought these so you could see, this is the tracing. This was actually the first tracing of this. And then sometimes I outline it with felt tip. And then when I get the drawing down,
That's right.
I use a real hard lead pencil. And when I get the drawing transferred,
Just move the whole thing around. The other way, yeah. We're just trying to get you, yeah.
There we
There you
go.
go.
Perfect, excellent.
when I get the drawing transferred, then I can do the painting. So this was the first one, and I wanted to put, you know, if you go in a yarn store, all you guys know about them in yarn stores. I'm sure. As you go in yarn store, and they have those cubicles and they have yarn in it, and that's what I wanted to do, but I don't know, it just didn't work for me. So I ended up, here she is. And I almost always have my women looking down, and one of my friends was over and she said, why don't you have them look out? So I did. And so and this is called knitting off the lamb.
Wow.
And so she's got 3 lambs there, and she's knitting, and I want to talk about the creepy tails. Because lambs do not have these tails,
No,
but I like them because they're just like a little creepy thing. Just like they're not super creepy. It's like the long-toothed rabbits. I did a series of aquatic paintings with big sea turtles and mermaids, and I'd have the claws on those sea turtles real close to her face, not on her face, not any, you know, but just because, you know, life is always a little bit of a menacing element in it, you know. It's like, you know, at any moment, you know, I always say 1 foot in the grave, another on a banana peel. Because you just don't know. And I think the older you get, you learn to respect that. And as my friend Phyllis says, who's 86, she says, one unfortunate step, Joan. I was 14 years older than I was. I just get the biggest kick out of her because one unfortunate step. And when you're real young, you don't think about ever stepping anywhere, you know. So those are just things that have come up since I was young, but they're not pain and suffering paintings. And I use stencils for the stars, and I just scraped in. And then she's knitting that sock, and the sock is coming off of that blue lamb, I think. And so that's just what I do.
You're probably gonna address this when you start painting, but it appears to be airbrush.
Yeah,
No.
no, you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm gonna do something really bold today. I just thought, what the heck, Joan? And you know, if there's something you don't like, and you're afraid to ruin it, well, just ruin it. Right? Because you don't have anything. If there's something that's really bothering you about it, so just ruin it. So I might ruin a painting today, but I'm gonna try not to ruin it. But I'm gonna start painting on this one. So this one You know how cats and fish kind of go together? So I thought, what if I did a koi pond? Because I love to do the koi. They came from a failed effort to be able to have aquariums.
Oh, yeah.
We can't show you right now.
That's okay, but they can see it's big enough. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I even committed murder. It was, I know. It was an act of passion. I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten much time. We had a black Molly in our fish tank and she was killing everyone. She was eating everyone. So she went to the universal fish soul. So I was an act of passion. I just felt bad about it. But, you know, so my idea was, what would it be like if a cat was playing in the water and
I'm just having fun.
we have to have fun. So I just thought, what if I put a cat, you know, in a fish pond? And there are these things that you can put over the koi ponds to keep the animals out. And that was the original. I was going to have those over, but then when I started doing it, I thought the cat was plenty. And this painting is pretty much finished, except I'm going to make the cat black, a lot darker, because I thought he was too much. And I put it out on Instagram, and I got some response that seemed like a good idea. If you take one of my cards, it's got my Instagram on it, and you can just see all the stuff that I do, because this is a small representation, and I do paint almost every day. It's a compulsion. So what I wanted, well, it's a good, I waited my whole life to do this. And the other thing I wanted to show you is I don't draw all these fish. It drives me crazy. So what I do is I have stencils that I use.
Have you created them yourself?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they're just out of, you know, mailing envelopes and anything that I happen to have. So, okay, so that's that koi body. And I just sort of play with it, you know, lightly. So these paintings don't have the tracing paper and all that stuff. These I just stretch and I just go right to drawing, and I'll do that one.
Can you
And
pull
then-
that over under the camera a little bit?
Oh, sure.
You know,
Sorry.
just,
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, there, because there it is up there. Thank you. Well, this.
Can you re-show the stencils, because we didn't capture that.
Yeah, so that's that stencil. And then I change how I make them different is I change all the tails.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so because they're all the same, the fish.
Body.
And so, let's see, this is. Oh, this is this one, I think, or maybe it's this one. Yeah, there he is. And then I just changed the tail. I just changed the tail, and it saves me a lot of time because you see the other paintings. My heart is in the figurative things, but I think I do better with there's that one in the koi with watercolor shows, because they do look like watercolor more than, you know, maybe that, you know, I don't know. The competition is so intense to get in the shows. And then there's the little cat stencil that I used the cats. I did the same thing with the cat as far as using stencils.
John, when you stretch, do you just put it in a bathtub or
Yep.
something and
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
just lay it wet and staple it down?
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, and my husband, I don't do this. He paints watercolor too. So and maybe some of you do this, because these are homosoap boards.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with
Yeah.
these? You get them at the lumber yard, they cut them to the size you need. And he actually puts a bag down. He wets it, he puts a bag down, like a plastic bag, and lays his piece on the plastic bag. And then when the shine goes off the paper, then he takes the plastic bag off and staples it down. When the shine goes off the paper, and none of the homosoap chemicals get on the back of his paintings. So his paintings look as pristine on the back as they do on the front. You know, I don't usually do that. So, you know, so mine, when you take them off, they've kind of got that chemical from the homosoap board on it.
Yeah, but
So-
it doesn't come through to the front, so.
Well, that's what I think, but I'm not Gary. I am not Gary. So Gary's, I put all this had frisket on it, and then I took it off and painted the leaves last because I thought I was done. But then I decided I wasn't done. So I just, before I came, I put another layer of frisket on here because you can't paint fast around all that stuff.
Do you find that it removes a lot of the color that you painted on?
It might, but I'll just paint over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you put frisket on top of color?
Well, that's what I did this time, and I don't know, I haven't done that in a long time, so some of the color might come off, but I'll just repaint it. Yeah, because I have a ridiculous amount of patience. I said it's a gift to be able to do really boring things for really incredibly long periods of time. It's a gift because a lot of people go, oh, I can't do, you know, that drive me crazy. So I put down a whole vine. Oh no, it's a Daniel Smith. Oh yeah, I've been trying Daniel Smith too. Black tourmaline, genuine for the cat. And then I put down an indigo blue, and then I might get into this kind of light manganese. And I also, and I didn't bring it today, I brought everything, but I also use, you know how this goes when you're painting and trying to talk. I use a ink eraser, you know, those for typewriters. Yeah, and if I need like a highlight on a face or something, I'll just lift that off real gently with that ink eraser. And I have even erased parts of the painting and then gone over and painted it. You can abuse this stuff. It's with the way I paint, you know, you can abuse it. It just depends. Because remember, I'm not your, you know, your traditional watercolor paint, but paint is paint. So what the heck, it doesn't matter.
Are you talking about the kind of eraser that's circular and it has a little brush on it?
Yeah.
And that's old school.
Yeah, I
They
know.
still sell them?
I know, yeah, Amazon. I hate it, but I know, Amazon, anything. I need a light bulb for a beauty mirror. I went to Lowe's and Menards and came home 2 minutes, it was on its way. I hate them. I do hate Amazon. Okay, so here goes. So remember, I can paint right over that because it's got frisket on it. And let's see how black I can get this cat. Am I in the way?
No, you're fine.
All right.
You abuse these. It's
Okay.
working.
So I just paint it right on, and this is the way I do on white paper too, because I'm gonna bleed everything out. You know, and if I would wreck it today, I can just go back and take it all off and do it again. And that's got frisket on it, so no worries. And a lot of you probably are saying, oh my gosh, she's got that on there so long, that line. But when you have paint on there, I don't get that line. I just don't. And, you know, I've been practicing a really long time. You know, Wynn Jones, my teacher again, I always mention him because he said in class, just to put it in perspective, because we were all whining, you know, you watercolor, it's so hard. And he said, and he said, have you done 100 paintings? And we just looked at him and no. Well, he said, talk to me when you've done 100 paintings. Come back and talk to me when you really practiced. So, but he was right. You have to do a lot. So if you're getting into this, or if you're even an old hand at it, do not say mean words to yourself, because there's enough meanness out there and there's enough relatives that will say something mean. So, well, because they don't know anything, just ignore them. Because be good to your
Go.
That way.
That
We're having fun here.
There you go.
This looks gray because of the light, but it's actually she's putting on black.
Right.
Yeah, it's a real super dark gray black.
Is it Payne's
Yeah.
gray or
It's-
similar?
It's Tourmaline.
Okay.
I don't even know. I've never heard of it before. But it was black enough that I thought it would work. So yeah, be nice to yourselves and I never would show relatives my work, although my mom was really cool. She put a naked lady picture in her hallway when I was in school. And, you know, she was just frontal and her breasts were showing. And she had a TV repairman come and he said, oh, that's trash. And my mother said, no, that's high art. Go to an art museum. Yeah, mom was really cool. She's a little stinker. She was great, but she always encouraged me. My parents did not tell me to go to business school. When I graduated, you know, there were only like 3 things we could do. You could be a nurse, not a doctor. You could be a receptionist, a typist, and you could be a school teacher. That was it. And I wanted to be a school teacher. I was an English major. So, but then I discovered art and had a
Too much?
teacher. I think I'm okay.
Is that too dark?
No,
No,
not actually.
no,
No.
that's good.
Oh,
Does
that's
it
okay.
show it better?
There, yeah, there's no glare then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I had a teacher take me out for coffee. And I came out of the coffee and called my mother, who thought I'd lost my mind. I said, Mom, I'm gonna get something called a BFA. I didn't even know what a BFA was.
Right.
But then I spent an extra year getting that BFA because I didn't have the credits. But see how nice that's
Yeah.
working?
Yeah. Blending it really nicely.
You know, in watercolor, no matter if you paint fast or slow, you're building layers up on top of layers. Now I put white on this cat's face, but I'm gonna pretty much demolish it now. But that's okay. And then I want that ear to have that, I don't know what color this is. It's such a cool color. Look at that. I love that color.
So you're really doing wet on dry this whole
Correct.
process, aren't you?
Mhm.
And getting it to blend.
Yeah, correct. And there's, I think, maybe 3 layers underneath this. And again, you can see all the process, the necessity of the process.
I had a question from the
Sure.
audience is,
Sure.
the leaves did you mask them?
Yes.
And yes, you masked them.
Yeah, I messed them. So there goes the eye, because that's pigment color versus dye colors. and these are dye colors, so the pigment color is laying on top. I don't use a lot of white in my paintings. I try to use the highlight, but it seemed like for the cat eyes, they weren't brought out very much. So, oh, and I even put whiskers in. Well, they're gonna go away too. That's okay. You get them back. I don't wreck a lot of paintings. Sometimes I wreck paintings, but or I don't finish them. But not too many, because I do so much preparatory work that I usually know. You know, I'm not your spontaneous, wait till you see Ken, you're just gonna go nuts. And my mouth just, my jaw drops open when I see painters like that. But I think you can paint according to your personality. And when I got my degree and I had my shows, they were in watercolor. And it was an oil painting degree, but they let me do it. Yeah, that was, I think I was back in 1977, you guys. Back in the 1900s. So yeah, they let me do that. I think that's nicer. I like the drama of that more than just the blue cat. There goes the eye. It completely disappeared. And then I always dry these because you know what watercolor is. You don't go to bed with a wet watercolor because you know when you get up in the morning, who knows what will be there. It's like the shoemaker's elves, you know, come in the middle of the night and do something nasty to your painting. I think it's more dramatic. Yeah, I do. And you know about wrecking your paintings, you know, I said this a little earlier. Just wreck them because if you don't wreck them, then you don't have anything because that painting's gonna bug you. You're gonna be, oh, well, and all you see is the part that you don't like. And don't tell anyone. Because students will, oh, well, you know, Miss B, I screwed it up there. And, you know, yes, I would probably see where you screwed it up, but just don't concentrate on that. You know, if there's anything when you do it right, just enjoy the part that you did right.
Again, how you do your layers, you said you do, was it a pigmented underneath? Because I do a lot of layered paintings.
Okay, well, this would have had a light blue, would have had like a cobalt blue
Yeah, I see
underneath
that,
there. Yeah, and then real pale,
Mhm,
and then, because you can see in
Yeah.
that one how pale they start.
mhm.
And then just,
Darker and darker as you.
right. And that's what makes it glow. That's the beauty of watercolor. And even people who paint quickly and loosely, which you know how much I admire, it's the same thing. They build up those layers. It's just with a loose hand. And now I'm just lifting some of that off, evening it out, and then I'll do that paw later. So I'm looking at it and seeing. Oh. You have to watch to make sure it's drying right. But if it's not dried right, I'll just do another layer. The paintings can take anywhere from, I don't know, 40 hours to 100 hours. But I'm painting full time, so it doesn't matter. I don't think yeah, I did first get that. It doesn't matter, as I go in the studio, my studio is just my son's bedroom. And he's gone. He flew the coop. He's all grown up and got his own life. And I just go in there and I've got good light in that room and I just paint all day, and I can get really weird, like I don't want to come out. I don't know, are you that way too? You know, when, oh gosh, it's so hard.
When you're in the zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just in the
And
painting
it's working
zone.
right.
It's working right and you're happy, and you know, you go out and you dance the Tarantino with the cat. Tarantino with the cat, put flowers in your hair because it's working out. Was kind of interested, was it Tammy? Did you say your teacher didn't let you use the hairdryer? Who said that?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah,
Where-
well, I take college classes and we have a whole 3 hours for each painting, and he encourages to pause, take it home, let it dry and bring it back in. So I'm not in a hurry with it, but
Huh.
I'm
That's
not sure. I'll
interesting.
ask him why specifically. Maybe there's some reason. that
Yeah,
there's a
yes,
paper or
well,
something.
you could move it around,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's always a problem if it gets moved around, but
Right.
yeah, it's just,
Whatever works right for you.
well, everyone, you know, I try not to make too many rules about how this should be. You know, and I started using a dryer when I was in school, and I don't think many people used them, but I do see that people use dryers now.
One reason I heard was that it pushes the paint.
Yeah,
I usually don't mind dry enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not careful with it.
That might be it, that he the paint flow and do its own thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll ask him on Friday.
Yeah, ask him and see.
It's a good reason to work on more than one at a time, so when one is drying, you can start repainting them in.
I can imagine.
But for purposes of demonstration, we.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I use them all the time.
No.
I have to see what it's doing. And I don't work on more than one at a time usually. Now, that one was abandoned, and
You spoke about the time you spent. How much time have you spent on this particular painting?
oh, probably about 60 hours. I used to time them, and then I quit because it was too depressing. You know, yeah, I used to sit and have a little sheet and time them, you know, how long they took. And when I realized how long they took, I just, and that's what that, you know, artist curator said, you know, she said, don't charge by the time.
Did you say 16 or
60,
60?
yeah, because of between the drawing and all the frisket, you know.
Stencils and
Yeah, some watercolor. I met a gentleman, he was one of Irving Shapiro's students, and he was funny. He said, "You did all that frisket, you're crazy." He was so cute. I didn't take offense. It's pretty hard to offend me. That's another thing when you're in school. Can you see? When you're in school, they put a hide on you. So you probably can't offend me, even if you said, well, I really hate what you do. Well, okay, that's something rather than walking by it. You know, if you stand there long enough to say, well, I really hate that painting, or, you know, what she's doing that's not watercolor, because I've had some people say that to me. Watercolor should be done quickly, and And, you know, like John Singer Sargent. If you haven't looked up his watercolors, look his watercolors up and be ready to be humbled. Oh my God. Yeah, he is just amazing painter. And then his watercolors, oh man. I would love to paint like that. Maybe, you know, part of me wants to just start trying that.
I was picking out a painting for payment for some jobs that I did for one of my instructors for that, and there's two of us. And one of them said, I really think this one looks like, she goes, don't say it, don't say it. And he kind of looked at me and goes, Kim Asher.
Oh,
That's
nice.
Room, going, no, I do not want my work to look like that.
Oh, I see, Jones, because he's probably heard that before. Yeah, when I was young, I got a horrible review in the New Art Examiner. Oh my gosh. And I was so young that I never dreamt it would be bad. And I read this thing and oh my gosh, it was the nastiest thing. And he brought up a Maxfield Parrish back then. And I wasn't even sure who that was. So I looked him up and I didn't really see the, you know, similarities, but oh, it was nasty. So now this is a nice thing about being older too. You know, I used to be able to hurt my feelings, but you know, unless you guys would throw tomatoes at me, you know, you can't really, because people say a lot of things and they don't really think about it, you know, so I'm not a person that's easily offended anyway, but you know, if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. So that's the cat's tail getting darker. And I think because this is kind of shiny in there, I'll have to do that again. And I'll probably darken that up and then put the cat's eyes in there. So that's that on that one. And then I want to show you the fish process of how I do the fish. I think
So how will you put the cat's eyes in?
Well, they're kind of drawn there and I'll use opaque paint.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll use opaque paint. And I might pull off a little of that with that ink eraser too. I was lucky enough to do a demo for the Illinois Watercolor Society. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. But you guys calmed me down right away because you're so nice.
We're not too scary here.
Yeah, and they were lovely, but it was like so many people and I hadn't done a demo in a while. So this painting, this fish is more finished and you can see all that was Frisket and I had to pull it off because it would stick. You know, if you leave it on too long, it sticks and it's really hard to get off. So what I thought I'd do on this one was just show you this glazing technique. So here, this fish, this one, he started as yellow and then I put green over him. And then this is cobalt violet, which is a really cool color. I don't know how permanent it is. It might be a little fugitive. I try to use mostly non-fugitive colors, but there's a few that sometimes you just have to use them. So I'm going to go over this fish with, I use Windsor green and Windsor blue to make a really beautiful turquoise. And this is this kind of an intense turquoise. And like that, you see it? And the reason I never clean my palette is because I use these colors all the time and I just put more on top. You know, I used to clean my palette, and I stole this palette from my husband, so I don't clean it. So you can see the the spots. Did I move it again?
No, you're fine, you're good,
Okay.
you're good.
I use those spots of Frisket, so now I'm gonna paint over those with a pretty dark color.
Someone is asking what kind of dryer that is because it's so quiet. I don't know.
Oh, is it quiet?
Susan,
Really?
did you turn the volume down when the dryer went on?
No.
So
Oh,
that is quiet.
that's
then.
a ANDIS. I got it at Sally's.
So what type of brisket do you use?
Yeah.
Winsor Newton. Oh, and I wanted to tell you something. It molds.
Oh, nice.
Did you know that? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had two. Did you have it happen? I had two bottles of it that were open. Because it's like $20 now a bottle. It's way up there. It used to be like $3. And it molded. It had black mold in it. I was appalled. I was shocked and appalled. Shocked and appalled. Yeah. And then, so I had another one, thank goodness, and I opened that up and it was fine. So I had it maybe too close to a window,
Well, it must be some food ingredient or something in it.
something in it.
Are you using now like a Viridian green or?
It's a combination of Windsor blue and
This is the
Windsor
turquoise,
green.
Right.
Is it a yellow shade or a red shade? Probably yellow
It's-
shade, Windsor blue. Red shade. It's just that's what
It's-
Windsor blue is, yeah.
Well, that I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit yellowy, yeah.
I have a turquoise on here, but this to create this kind of depth,
That's really pretty.
I need it
Yeah.
darker.
Paint something in the middle of brisket?
Those are the fins on the top of the koi. And when I do the koi, I want them to feel like koi rather than look like koi. Have you ever fed koi?
Oh, yeah.
They're the nastiest
friend,
looking.
no.
They are not pretty.
Carp.
I know.
Horrified carp.
They are, but from above,
Mm.
they're gorgeous. So yeah, we go to Anderson Gardens and they creep me out. But to paint them like this, they're beautiful. And of course, in a koi pond, not feeding them from the shore, this is the way you see them.
Mm.
So see, I'm painting over all that color that I had before. And you just layer. It's just layer after layer until you get them to do, you get it to do what you want it to do.
So when you say frisket, do you mean masking fluid?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, the liquid frisket. Yeah, and
How do you remove it?
just with my fingers. I just scrape it, peel it off. You know, if I've got a lot, like when this one, I had to pause and use a different finger because it pulls. One of my biggest faux pas when I was teaching, I was doing a demonstration in Naperville, and I used to have a rubber cement eraser. Have you ever seen those? Yeah, and I'm up there spouting off, blah, 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 and I said, oh, and this is a rubber cement eraser, and it takes the frisket off. And this guy says, and I said, I think it's just a big glop of dried out rubber cement. And this gentleman raises his hand and he said, I work for rubber cement, and it is not a big glob. Right, there you go. So, oops, it sounded good at the time. So I quit using it and just started using my fingers. Yeah, that was pretty funny, you know, because if you get cocky, you know, someone's gonna correct you because you're not always all that in a bag of chips. You know, even though you might think you are at the moment. Oh yeah, these people are. So, you know, yeah, I taught watercolor for, like I said, 25 years, and it was fun. I used to do workshops. I haven't done, and then I had a period in between where I didn't paint very much. And then I retired when I was 65. And so I've been painting full time for 7 years, and it's just been the best time of my life. Don't you love it when you paint? Oh my gosh. There's just nothing like it. It's such a good feeling, even when you mess it up, because then you learn from that one. So see how that changes, where, you know, it's real rich and dark here, and then it's changing over that cobalt violet, and then it's changing up here again. Any questions about that?
So it's changing based on what's underneath it.
Right,
Ah.
exactly, yeah. And let's see, do I put yellow under
Put
blue?
yellow under some of it.
Yeah, sometimes I
Yeah.
will put yellow under, yeah, and I think in color pencils, you put yellow over the top, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, I'm still learning the color pencils.
I don't.
They're kind of a mystery. And then over here, do you want me to do another fish?
We time.
Do we have, what
We can
time?
end anytime from 11:30 to 11:45.
Okay.
So, you know, just a few more minutes.
Oh, well, I can do another fish if you don't mind. I'll just do another fish. I'll do a different color.
Yeah, because you've got a peachy and more yellowy, orangey color on some of the other tails. On the other fish.
I could put orange over it.
It seems like when you're layering, it's extra important to know your color theory then,
Oh, yeah.
because you know then what is what.
Yeah, that's super important, Judy. That's a really good point. So I'm gonna put more orange over here and not so much on the green, but there'll be a little bit.
If you ever get the underneath color kind of lifting or moving around on you?
Yeah, a little bit sometimes, and I just kind of blend it in.
Oh,
Yeah.
Depends on the color. Yeah. That's absolutely.
Yeah, and I never used to use pigment colors because they come up just like what you said, but now I love them. So I'll use a lot of pigment colors. Versus the dye colors. And I've developed an aversion to red in my life, I think because I'm so hot all the time. Honestly. So I took all the red out of my house. I got rid of all my red clothes because I used to wear red all the time. So I think it's almost an aversion to red. Because it makes me hot just looking at it. So, you know, you change, and I'm just so much happier with blue. Now I'm putting orange on here. Orange I seem to be able to handle. And I put a little red because I think it's nice to have a little red in a painting. You know, so I think we change. Don't you think you change? Your life changes, your attitudes, you know, I don't do any pain and suffering paintings now. And my philosophy is that every line must be beautiful. And I really try to paint joyous things and whimsical things. And, you know, I don't want to paint, you know, things that are too disturbing, although I will put a creepy tail on a lamb or a cat or a greyhound. I did a greyhound painting. It was too big to bring today. I would have loved to have brought it, but my husband put glass on it. He was a picture framer. And so, yeah, and my mom said, marry Gary.
It's natural, Gary.
Isn't that like such a mom thing? And Mom said, and I did, I listened to her. And he frames all my pictures and you can see he does a beautiful job. Yeah. But he's always begging me, Joan, paint smaller. And I can paint the big ones. So, yeah, but he makes he has a woodworking degree too, background. And so he makes those beautiful frames and he was a picture framer. So the mats are perfect. And, you know, sometimes they get a little, I am very fortunate because I know how much all that stuff costs because we have to pay, you know, regular price, but then we don't have to pay the picture framer because picture framing is all there's nice orange fish. And it's all labor intensive. That's why it costs so much. It's not the material so much, it's all the labor that those guys put in it. So,
What kind of art does your husband do?
he's a landscape painter.
Oh.
Yeah, real quiet, beautiful, serene. Yeah, but there's always a storm coming. There'll be like this beautiful landscape and then there'll be this little gray cloud thing. So he's just like me, a little, yeah.
Contrast.
Yeah, we hope we're both entering the vicinity tomorrow. So we hope that we'll both get in because I'm entering that one and he's entering the landscape. Usually he would have come with me to help me, you know, carry the stuff, but he didn't. Is there any questions about anything?
I have a question about the painting behind you. The
Sure.
lambs have such wonderful gradations of value. You do a lot of that by lifting out apparently.
I just go in real dark and then just like I did with the cat, I bleed it out to light. Yeah, I only lift for like a highlight, like on her collarbone here. I lifted just that little light, but to get the stars were on there. All this was the same color, and then I painted around the stars. And then this I scratched into it with a knitting needle, which is what that one down in front. And that one over there, the woman with the cat. Did you guys see she has a cat on her head? Yes. Well, because if you've ever been owned by a cat, you know that if they come and sit on your head, because they picked you, you know, the way they are. And you don't own them. They own you. They're not like dogs. And I love dogs too. We have a border collie. You ought to see Gary trying to frame a picture having a border collie in the house.
Oh, boy.
I woke up with a hair in my mouth the other day.
Sure.
It was a border collie here. I went to bed, there was no border collie here. So that's the border collie. And I did do a picture of Joey called Border Collie Blues. Because there's something. So
The knitting needle.
yeah. Well, she's knitting that sock right off of that lamb.
You scratched stuff into the painting with the knitting needle?
Here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was
Yeah.
following it.
Yeah, so that's something that I've been doing recently. I have this little needle and I put little grips on it. And I just, before I start, I just go like that. And then when you paint it, it's dark. Yeah, it's dark and it's a different. I love these because I use a stencil for the cat. And then I just make some kind of a design in the background. And I love the moon because you know the way cats are, you know, yeah. I entered a show once and did a haiku for my entry because they want you to ask, they want you to tell. And so I just wrote a haiku, you know, to describe the cat at night. I did get in it with that picture over there, the one with her head, the cat on her head, because I'm going to do another one with cat standing on her head. I have the sketch, so I'm going to do that one too. Well, thank you so much. Yes.